Natalie.
And I'm Katrina, and welcome back to our channel.
Toshidensetsu edition. Sen to Chihiro no Kamikakushi, also known as Spirited Away in English, was recently made really popular with it being on Netflix, and a lot of people on TikTok were asking me to do this fan theory.
So while the animation is amazing and the storyline's heartwarming, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we wanted to discuss something a little more sinister, for lack of a better word. Okay, maybe not sinister,
but like urban legends.
Yeah,
like fan theories, urban legends, all of that.
Exactly.
So I actually don't know this one, so I'm gonna let her talk about it.
Okay, so I came across this recently, and it's kind of like more of a rumor. All of these are just theories, really, but it's saying that the movie also has like a darker social commentary, commenting on the darker side of Japanese society. So let's start by discussing the idea of a kamikakushi. What is a kamikakushi? The English title is Spirited Away. The Japanese title is Sen to Chihiro no Kamikakushi. If you don't know Japanese, kami means God, kakusu means like to hide. So kamikakushi essentially means to be hidden away by a god, or to be, spirited away. There was a scary story that recently blew up on Japanese Twitter. Essentially, he heard this story from like this guy who passed away, I think 15 years ago. But the story goes, when this man was younger, in his village, he had a friend, and one day that friend went missing. Naturally, the whole village was, really scared, so they started looking for him, and they looked for him for maybe like about a week. I think it was like 7 days, 7 nights or something. And then on the 8th morning, the boy, the one who's telling the story, he woke up, and suddenly like the village was acting like nothing happened. And so the kid was asking around saying like, okay, but who have you been looking around for the past week then? And everyone was just telling him, what are you talking about? This family only had 4 kids to begin with, like as if he was crazy. And so, he kept telling them, no, this is my friend, he's missing. And pretty soon people started getting like angry at him for like continuously asking. So then they got so angry at him, he got scared, so he decided to pretend that he also forgot. And so for the rest of his life, he pretended that he also forgot. Then one day he was invited to the funeral of his like disappeared friend's mom, and he sees his friend there, like all grown up and everything. And he's freaking out because he's thinking, okay, this guy like disappeared. And then in Japanese like culture, at funerals and stuff, they do like some kind of eating ceremony or whatever. So during that time, that friend came and started talking to him. He said, do you remember me? And the friend pretended, he feigned dumb. He was like, who are you? And apparently the guy said, daijoubu, like it's fine. And none of like the commenters can really decipher whether or not it's like a relief, oh it's fine, or anything like that, right? So nobody knows like the context of daijoubu, but apparently that's what he said. And after that, every year he would get invited to that same mother's funeral, and he would throw away that every year.
The same mother's, like a funeral
invitation. And it was so weird because you only go to a funeral once. And so apparently this kind of phenomenon happened a lot back in the day in old time Japan. And the really scary part is not so much the idea of getting spirited away by like a spirit or a god. Like yes, that's scary, but people are saying that the scarier thing is the idea that these people probably banded together to collectively forget somebody. And so back in the day, something would happen to a kid. Maybe he got killed or something, or he would be sold as like a slave, and they would explain it away by saying, oh, he was just spirited away. So essentially how that ties into Spirited Away is some people are saying that stories like this are the main backbone behind the movie itself. So that's one kind of theory, and that Miyazaki, he was trying to not forget. You know how forgetting is a big topic in the movie? He was saying, don't forget that these dark things did happen in Japanese villages once upon a time. So it was kind of just like drawing back to the darker aspects of old Japanese society.
Okay, so this is the one that I actually talked about in my TikTok. So the theory is that Spirited Away is based off of Japanese prostitution back in the day. So a couple of things point to this, and one of them is that the people working in the bathhouse are actually called yuna. And yuna is a term that existed in the Edo period of Japan to kind of refer to women who worked at the bathhouses. And yes, they actually cleaned their clients, but they were known to clean more than that, if you catch my drift. Okay, so point 2, just like in brothels, Chihiro gains a new name, Sen. And in Japanese brothels, they assign a new name to the person to kind of give them a new identity inside the brothel. So if you look really closely and look at all of the clients in the bathhouse in the movie, they're all men. So that kind of links in with the whole bathhouse thing. And all of the people who actually clean the clients, they're all women. The last point that we have is in an interview with Miyazaki, he actually says himself, and he makes this comment and says, I'm going to read this off my notes, but 日本はすべて風俗みたいな社会になっている。
今の世界として描くには何がふさわしいといえば、それは風俗営業だと思う。
I think this comment kind of confirms like our suspicions are true about this movie. But yeah.
So this one was really interesting to me. I didn't know this at all. I didn't catch on to this. But one of the theories, or it's not even a theory because it's actually true. You can see it in
it's
the
just
film.
something that we noticed in the film.
Yeah. So the reason that Chihiro was able to escape Yuvalva was not so much anything else other than the fact that she wasn't actually binded by a contract. And what we mean by that, like, yes, she signed it, but if you look really closely in the beginning when Chihiro writes her name on the contract,
it's not.
It's not her. It is her name, but she makes a mistake in the kanji in her family name.
Yeah. Whether this was on purpose or not is unknown, but there is a theory that her contract was never actually yielded, and this is kind of to back it up. So basically, she was always able to just get out of her contract with ease because it wasn't actually her name on the paper.
Her last name is Ogino, and that's not the kanji for Ogino, but it's so similar, and we'll put it on the screen just to show you guys.
Yeah, but I think it was on purpose.
Was she smart enough at that time? She's like 10.
Who knows? Who knows? The dark backstory of the translucent people on the train going to Zenyubaba's house.
Reading this one freaked me out.
So this is, again, just a theory and it's not proven at all, but some people say that the faceless people are actually people who are contemplating suicide in our world.
So if you remember, none of the passengers had any faces. They were just dark, translucent, and really eerie. And so these same theorists think that when these people get off, it indicates that they have decided to live after all. You know, they've overcome that suicidal state and they've kind of like resurrected spiritually. So that's why they were able to get off the train that was leading them towards death. Number 5.
Okay, this one is a little bit gory and we were kind of debating including this, but we wanted to add everything that we can and everything that we found out. So there's always been this question about Chihiro's parents' attitude as soon as they go in through the tunnel.
So when they're driving, if you guys remember, the parents are really agitated. They're trying to get to the place. They're saying, oh, we're gonna be late. The movers are gonna be there. And so that's why the dad starts driving really fast, like almost like a maniac. He just keeps driving. And did you not ever find it strange that all of a sudden, as soon as they get out and they see the tunnel and they go in through the tunnel, as soon as that happens, they're all like happy-go-lucky.
They're like calm and happy-go-lucky, but before they were just like so stressed about getting to their destination.
So like, where did that stress go? And the mom even goes as far as saying something like, oh, we should have brought our sandwiches from the car or something. Like, it was really weird. And so this theory actually kind of explains why they were suddenly so calm.
So some people on the internet speculated that the dad was actually driving in full speed and got into an accident. So because of the accident, people are speculating that the entire family was actually in a coma-like state.
So it's like a state almost between life and death. And it's interesting because when they pass through that tunnel, they actually cross a river. And that's very similar to a lot of people who've had like near-death situations. And so that kind of, you know, you think about how Chihiro and her family, they crossed that river. And if you remember, when Chihiro tried to go back, you know, to the real world, she couldn't because it was flooded. So then she couldn't go back into the real world. She was stuck in the spiritual one. And so some people are saying that she's crossed that threshold of life or death and she's been in this like spiritual world. But at the same time, I don't know, because at the end of the movie, they go back and their car is fine. Unless that part is also part of like her dream.
Like passing on.
Yeah. So like that wasn't even in the real world. But
or maybe she was still in the coma state.
But that's where like the hole in this theory for me is. It's like when they come out of the tunnel, their car is not crashed or anything.
Yeah, and they just like go about their lives again.
Yeah, it is weird though because the car is all messy and covered up.
That's the whole thing with this. Like, if that much time has passed, what is happening in the real world? So we were like asking ourselves that question. We found this other theory.
Just take a moment and remember the ending of the movie. How do you remember it? Because I'm about to reveal one huge example of the Mandela effect that apparently affected a bunch of like Japanese netizens. So what actually happens is that Chihiro and Haku, you know, they separate, they go their separate ways, and she's reunited with her parents. Her parents don't remember anything. They're just like, let's go back, Chihiro. And she's just like, okay. And she follows them back through the tunnel, and their car is like a mess like we were talking about earlier. It looks like a lot of time has passed. And, you know, the parents are just commenting on how, oh, the movers have probably already gone there. And they just disappear into like the rest of the forest.
So when you guys watched it as a kid, like, what did you remember? Did you remember it differently? Because apparently a lot of people have.
So a collective group of people, like a bunch of people have had like a different recollection of how it ended, and they all have these things in common. The first thing is Chihiro gets into the car and realizes that her hair tie is different, but she can't remember why, but she realizes this.
And the second one is on their way to their new home. You see the movers already arrived to the new house, and the mom yells at the dad.
And a lot of people are remembering them actually getting to that new house and then being yelled at by the movers for being late.
And then Chihiro goes off to explore the neighborhood and comes across a river.
And then she kind of, this is weird, like a lot of people have different takes on this, but she kind of like sees Haku or acknowledges Haku's presence in that river, and that's how it ends.
That's the ending.
Yeah. I remember the part where she thought like her hair tie was different or something was different. And that's how I remembered it.
I remember her kind of remembering Haku.
Yeah.
And like reimagining Haku kind of.
Like how the movie ended was not how I remembered it at all. So the Mandela effect, there we go.
Okay, so that's it for now. The biggest urban legends for Spirited Away
That we thought were interesting and worth sharing.
Thank you so much for watching.
And hope to see you again soon.
Like, subscribe, and share. Our socials are down below. Bye!